Wonderkids. You love them. I love them. We're probably both on a list now, but in this video, we're going to count down the top 10 of them. What is going on, guys? Jack here. Today we've got the top 10 Wonderkids in FM21. Yes, these are the best of the best, the creme de la creme, as I think the French said once upon a time. If that's not a French saying, that is very awkward now. But yes, in this video we're going to be taking a look at the 10 best Wonderkids, in my opinion, in FM21. Yes, these aren't going to be players you've heard of. Erling Haaland isn't in this list. Camavinga isn't in this list. These are Wonderkids that aren't going to cost you an arm and a leg, but ones who, if you develop correctly, can be world beaters. And I feel like that's what you really want. I could give you a list of the best Wonderkids in the game. You're not going to be able to sign any of them. So yeah, I do hope you enjoy this video. If you do, and you are new here, make sure to subscribe for more Football Manager content. I promise you it's worth your time. Let's Plays, guides, more Wonderkid videos like this one. They're coming in hot with FM21 well underway. And well, without further ado, let's get underway into this countdown, shall we? Number 10, coming in hot. Let's do this. So kicking things off, we've got Omar Bayas, a Turkish 16-year-old centre-attacking mid who starts at Fenerbahce. A very, very good player with some terrific technicals, decent determination and a fantastic personality of professional. You can see he is left-footed as well, and whilst perhaps he lacks a little in the physical department, because he is so young, he will just develop them over time. As I will do with all of the players in this list, I have got a little preview of what he could look like in your save game. Of course, in Football Manager, potential of players does have some variety, but as you can see in this test here, Bayas ended up at Roma, where he is not valued necessarily really highly, but when you look at his attributes on the whole, he's just absolutely top drawer. 19 composure, superb first touch, passing and technique. And I think it goes without saying, he would be an absolutely world-class centre-attacking mid, considering you can pick him up for under £10 million within the first season, or indeed on a free transfer, with his contract expiring just 1 year into the save game. I think he's just a really good player and definitely one to have on your radar. Coming in at number 9, we've got the oldest player in this list and one of two Norwegians in this countdown, Edvard Tagstad, a Norwegian centre mid by trade, a player who, despite being 19, has a little bit of potential left to fulfil. That's maybe putting it a little mildly. He has a lot of potential left to fulfil, but he's a player who you will have to, develop quite carefully, I feel like. He starts as a centre mid, he's available for under £2 million. And he can play a whole host of positions, which is a little unusual. His physicals, though, allow him to be pretty mobile, and considering his great crossing and dribbling, if I was going to pick him up for just £1.5 million, I think the position I would actually look to develop him in would actually be left wing-back. He is left-footed, and you can see here, looking at him as a complete wing-back, whilst off the ball it leaves a little bit to be desired, there's plenty of room to grow into this role, and he's already pretty well suited to it, all things considering. Perhaps his marking and positioning is slightly lacking for a defensive player, but considering he's 19, plenty of years left ahead of him to improve. In some of the simulations I have done into the future, he's gone on to play regularly in the Premier League. In the example you can see on screen here, he is currently playing in China after a spell of playing centre mid on the regular for Norwich City in the Premier League. He's not going to ask for an arm and a leg, he's a quite nice budget option, just a super versatile player who will help round off the edges and gaps that might be lacking in any squad in a top European league. In at number 8, we've got a player that you'll be familiar with if you've been watching my Manchester United beta Let's Play, Andrea Pirloetti, a player who starts at Brescia and you can sign for absolute peanuts. A 17-year-old with a hell of a lot of potential, but already a player very capable of being exposed to first-team football, available for a measly £2 million. You can even approach to sign him at the beginning of a save game. His extremely low wages mean he isn't going to ask for a crazy sum of money, and he develops into a top little quality centre back. I know that for many people, the idea that Sandro Tonali is no longer available to sign might, put a dampener, I suppose, on FM Wonderkids this year. But don't worry, Brescia have got this man to take his place. And in my simulations into the future, you can see he has ended up being a regular starter at Bayern Munich. An absolutely insane player, will break into the Italy national team with no problems whatsoever, and a player whom you should almost certainly pick up if you're managing a top European team, regardless of your budget. Coming in at number 7, we've got Yunus Musa, a player who starts at Valencia at the measly age of 17. And to be fair, he starts out with some pretty good current ability, an incredibly rounded player right off the bat. It's no wonder he's on this list when you kind of look at how good he is. One of the big things to note about Yunus here is, in fact, the fact he's part English. So if you are managing in England and you have your Brexit happen and the work permits are becoming a problem, Yunus is one player that you won't have to worry about that with. He's a good player. In the first season, Valencia will ask for around £15 million, but I have seen him go for significantly less than that. And the things that I really love about this guy are, firstly, just how exceptionally well-rounded he is, but then secondly, just how versatile he is. He can play pretty much either side in midfield, any role in midfield. He's a super talented player, and he's just an ultimate squad man. And I'm someone who definitely likes those kind of utility options. If you're managing in the Premier League, a player worth having on your radar, especially because he is part English. As you can see looking at this sim into the future, whilst Musa perhaps hasn't become the world's best centre mid, he's definitely a jack of all trades and master of some. Coming in at the number 6 spot, we've got Savio, who starts out at Atletico Mineiro over in Brazil. Yes, a Brazilian wonderkid in the list. There had to be one. This is the man I've picked out, a new player in this year's Football Manager, and as you might be able to tell from looking at his value and his wages, he's not going to cost you an arm and a leg, but is already a very good player. I feel like when you look at his profile, you can tell he already has the template of a player who's going to be very, very good. He kind of naturally plays out on the right-hand side of midfield at the beginning of the game. However, he can play a whole host of positions to a decent level, and he is kind of the ultimate attacking option. Whilst you would love his finishing to be a little better, and it might hinder his ability to ever play as a striker, in terms of attacking mid options, there's not many better 16-year-olds in the game. As I said before, he will not cost you a great deal either. The only reason he's not higher in this list is because you probably have to have Brazil loaded in order to have him in your database, and I know not everyone does. As you can see, looking into the future at how he's doing at the relatively tender age still of 23, he's valued at just shy of £30 million, playing for Lyon, a player who definitely can develop better than he has in this simulation forward. So bear that in mind. At 16 years old, if you snap him up early, plenty of time to, I guess, mould him to be the exact player you want, really to fast track him and guide him through the first team and ultimately make him into one of the superstars of world football. Up next, we've got a player who may well be a familiar face to some. Matias Palacios, a 17-year-old Uruguayan who was already a bit of a Football Manager household name following his appearance into the game last year, was always a good budget option to get, and well, that has not changed this year. And I really want to shine a light on him, particularly for newer players to Football Manager who perhaps haven't stumbled across this kid. You can pick him up for £1.5 million. He is comfortably one of the best budget Wonderkid strikers, definitely a super good value for money proposition. You may have some problems with work permits. The only reason he's not really higher in this list is because he's not exactly a new Wonderkid. He really made his splash in Football Manager just last year, but as you can see from this simulation into the future, he is just a top quality advanced forward, a player who already has some very good current ability and definitely is ready for first team football. There aren't many striker options that are Wonderkids that are as good as value for money as Matias Palacios, and it would have felt not quite right if I didn't include him on this list, especially because I didn't include him in last year's top 10 Wonderkids on FM 2020, and I think if I didn't include him this year, he might come and find me in my sleep. Coming in at number 4 in this list, we've got Yusuf Damir, a player who, I'm going to be honest, I think is going to be the player I'm the most desperate to use at some point this year in Football Manager. He looks absolutely superb, a top quality player, perhaps the best player in this list in terms of his actual ability, but you're going to have to pay between 25 and 30 million pounds, at least initially in a save game, to get him signed. I have no doubt that that asking price and that valuation might vary within a few years of a save game, but SK Rapid Vienna don't really have an interest in selling their starlet. You can see here he is an incredible centre attacking mid who's also natural out on the right hand side where he can cut in on his left foot, has plenty of player traits. I've seen him play for the Austrian national team within about 6 months of a save game starting. He does have a variable potential ability, but it's always up there with kind of top Champions League quality. Because of how good his current ability is, he's already an incredible player. He very rarely won't reach his potential, so He's pretty much guaranteed to be a superstar. I have no doubt that if you have a large enough database, and indeed that he loads in as part of the Austrian leagues, he's going to be a player who haunts your nightmares if he's not on your team. A very good player. In the simulation forward, you can see he ended up playing for Liverpool as a first-team regular. Extremely good talent, starts very young, crazy current ability, pretty much guaranteed to hit his potential. And yeah, for that reason, he's high in this list, despite the somewhat obscene asking price. In at number 3 in this countdown, we've got a Barcelona youngster in Gavi, a player who has a release clause of £300,000. I don't know why I've done a dramatic pause there. He starts aged only 15, an incredible young prospect, a crazy centre mid with a whole lot of talent, a bag full of tricks, valued at, well, a modest £48,000, but with that £300,000 release clause, you're going to want to swoop in quickly. And it's worth noting, you definitely can sign this guy. I have done some tests. I was able to sign him as Norwich City. He is willing to move away from Barcelona to East Anglia. So clearly a player worth having on your radar. Very good player. Not necessarily got the craziest current ability, but he's got some good potential. Ultimately, it is that release clause of just over £250,000 that sees him appear so high on this list. Have him on your radar. Be aware that he is around. Try and snap him up, pry him away from Barcelona, and hope that you can develop him so that you can haunt them when he returns to the new camp in 10 years' time. So coming in second place and getting the silver medal, unfortunately for them, is the Norwegian that I promised you earlier, Max Norman Williamson. I said there were 2 on the list. Here is number 2. He is a 16-year-old centre-back who starts at Kristiansund in the Norwegian Premier League. You can sign him for around £2 million in the first transfer window. As you might suspect from his wages, he's only on £375 a week, so he is not going to be too against moving clubs. And for a whole host of teams, he is a very viable first window transfer target. You can see, looking at his kind of initial attributes, great heading ability, great jumping reach. He kind of has the natural physicals, bar the strength that you'd want from a centre-back. Probably going to want to work on that strength training, as I mentioned, help him hit the gym, help him bulk up. But if you do that, he will develop into a top quality player. You can see in this example, 23 years old, very much in the realms of an area where he could develop. He's on loan at Borussia Mönchengladbach from Tottenham, valued at £30 million, 40 caps for the Norwegian national team. Also has learnt to play right back, which is maybe something worth considering with him, although I don't know how good he really is at going forward. But ultimately, he is the best value for money defender, in my opinion, in FM20. It'll be interesting to see how he looks in next year's FM and beyond, and if he can live up to the hype that's already been built up around him in FM21. And finally, my pick for the best Wonderkid in Football Manager 21 is Matias Palacios. He starts at San Lorenzo, an 18-year-old Argentine centre-attacking mid with some crazy creativity, great speed, great technicals, and the potential to back it up. Editing Jack, just slap the future version of him in now. Just show people how good he is before we big him up some more. Yeah, he's absolutely nutty, this boy. Starts at 18 years old. You can sign him first season for around £5 million. I did some tests. He's possible to sign for Norwich City in the Championship. So he, will go to a decent level of club. And, it's not only the top teams that can compete for this man. You may want to pick him up relatively early in your save game, though, before one of the big boys does pick him up. At 18 years old, obviously, he already looks superb. He's got great mentals as well for his age. He will develop. He's a young 18-year-old should you start with a normal European start date. And he's the kind of player who I already know is going to haunt me throughout this year's Football Manager, cropping up at PSG, cropping up at Real Madrid, knocking me out of Champions League after Champions League. And I, for one, can't wait. Anyway, guys, that does wrap up this video from me today. If you're one of the 3 people who's made it to the end of this video, thank you very much for getting to the end. Make sure to drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it. And if you're new here, do of course subscribe. Football Manager 2021 content coming in on the regular right now. You're not going to want to miss any of it. And well, that is all from me today. Until next time, folks, take care. I'll see you again soon. It is me, Jack, and I'll talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.